Welcome back, hosers. Today we are working to improve my greenhouse's temperature regulation. I have installed a shade cloth. I'm going to take you through the steps I went through to do that, and we're going to talk about some of the other ways that I am going to try to keep my greenhouse usable throughout the summer without electricity. Alright, so I'm very excited today because I am about to install this shade cloth that I got from Greenhouse Megastore. They're not a sponsor. So this is going to go on top of the greenhouse, and hopefully it's going to help regulate the temperature a little bit, because it's been getting hot in there, and I know greenhouses, you know, they're supposed to get warm, but above a certain temperature you actually start to stress out your plants. So this is going to be my no electricity solution to the heat problem in my greenhouse, which will hopefully serve me throughout the summer. Now I'm going to be using 2 tools and 1 type of hardware for this installation. So I'm going to be using my power drill, because I want to pre-drill the holes for the eye bolts that I'm going to be using to secure the shade cloth with the rope. And I brought a screwdriver not because I'm going to be driving any screws, but I can hopefully use it for a little bit of leverage as I tighten my eye bolts. I've run into a bit of a problem, which is, it's a good problem to have, because the problem is that my greenhouse is too tall for me to drape this over it all by my big boy self. So what I've done is I've tied some rope onto it, and I am going to throw the rope over the top of the greenhouse. I picked this trick up when I was helping to reskin a hoop house that for a company I was working for. Now, the reason I wanted to get this draped over my greenhouse before I started installing the eye bolts to tie down my shade cloth so that it will stay in place over the summer is that I wanted to get a feel for where the grommets fall in relationship to the base of the greenhouse. Because one issue that I want to definitely address is that my roof vents are covered by the shade cloth, and I would love to have both roof vents and shade cloth in my temperature control arsenal. So I'm going to need to figure out a way to secure this that does not block my roof vents. Watching another channel, I saw that the guy decided that he was going to just cut flaps for his roof vents, but because this is a woven textile, I am reticent to do that, because any fresh cuts that I make that I don't hem are going to, well, they're going to weaken the fabric. This is UV treated. It is engineered to last at least 5 years of general use constantly throughout the summer, and I'd rather not ruin that. So instead, I'm going to fasten it down, I think, in just 3 places in the back. I'm going to do 1 tie in the center here, then 1 tie at each end, so that the area around the roof vents is not tightly tied down. And I'm going to see if I can still allow the vents to open that way. And then I'm going to more thoroughly tie down the front. I mean, it's not super important to securely tie this down, because by its very nature it is full of holes, and these holes will let most of the wind through. So it's not as big of a structural issue to fail to tie it down securely as you might think. This step is optional, but before I begin pre-drilling some holes, I want to pre-drill because this is my foundation and I don't want to split it. I want to see how deep to drill, and I'm going to mark that off on my drill bit with a piece of painter's tape. This is pressure treated wood, and they don't treat it all the way through. I'm sure they'd love to, but you know, there's physics and chemistry and reality that get in the way. So I don't want to drill any deeper into this than I absolutely have to. And by marking my depth on the drill, I can make sure that is not going to be an issue. Now that I'm ready to go, I'm going to drill down into my foundation where I want to screw in the eye bolt. And now you're gonna see why I need a screwdriver. So I just realized these can be adjusted to start opening at different temperatures. So what I'm doing here is I am cranking my automatic vents wide open so that I can get a better feel for how much slack I need to leave for them as I fasten down my shade cloth. Right, now that I've got my shade cloth installed and tied down, and I verified that my vents are still able to fully open, I should have drastically improved my greenhouse's ability to self-regulate its temperature, even though this is not grid tied. So I don't have any electricity, which means I can't run any fans like would be awesome. But this should also help out, because it's a 40% shade cloth. It will also help out as I start seedlings in here, or as I bring seedlings out to the greenhouse to begin acclimating them to the higher light outside. The shade cloth will help make that an easier transition for them as well. So let's just go over really quick the several components of temperature regulation that I have going right now. I have my vents, so over there I've got my wall louvered vent with an automatic opener. Then in the roof I have my 2 roof vents with automatic openers. And it just tickles me that they are adjustable, because that really helped with today's shade cloth installation, knowing that I could crank them wide open and allow just the right amount of slack in my shade cloth that I can continue to use my roof vents. Other sources of temperature regulation in here are not going to be as obvious. And now that I've got a floor installed in my greenhouse, that actually does a lot to help me regulate the temperature as well. Because my floor is made of gravel and bricks, these have the ability to soak up heat during the day and then gradually emit it at night. So this floor that I've installed is going to help even out those sharp temperature drops that are going to be happening at night, which is kind of a big deal here in Logan, because even in July and August, the 2 hottest months of the summer, the temperature here still drops down to 60 sometimes. It can be a little bit tough on some other plants. So one thing I want to experiment with in here is just growing a tomato inside the greenhouse all summer long. So yeah, these are the ways that I am cooling my greenhouse without electricity. If you have electricity, you're gonna want some fans, because air circulation in your greenhouse is going to help eliminate hot spots and cold spots that may develop during the warm and cooler seasons, as well as keeping moisture from building up on the leaves of your plants, which can lead to fungus issues. I am desperately searching for a solar fan that I could plug in here that is affordable and easy to install. If you guys have any suggestions for solar fans, by the way, please leave them in the comments, because I do want more air movement in here, both for my sake and for my plant's sake. Another thing you can do to control temperature in your greenhouse is, if you have access to some 55-gallon water barrels, those are traditionally stacked along the north side of the greenhouse, and even better if you insulate behind them. And what those water barrels will do is, because of the high specific heat of water, it will reduce how quickly your temperature climbs during the day and how quickly your temperature drops at night. So that's another way that you can control your temperature in your greenhouse. And of course, if you have electricity to your greenhouse, as I do not, you can also run a heater. How much it costs to heat your greenhouse is of course going to vary as a factor of the insulation quality of the materials that your greenhouse is made of. This is maybe 6mm double wall poly, if that. I wouldn't be surprised if it's like 4mm. So it's going to have a really low insulation value relative to some of the other double wall polys you can get. This is single wall. They've included this in the kit because I guess people really want glass greenhouses, and this looks a lot more like glass. it's still with that single wall. I'm probably going to wind up putting some horticultural bubble wrap around all of the walls of this greenhouse. So horticultural bubble wrap is an affordable way for you to add insulation value to your greenhouse for passive heating and cooling during the hot and cold seasons as well. If you have any other ideas or comments of how people could help heat and cool the greenhouse, preferably affordably, why don't you put those in the comments as well? Because one thing I've noticed is that is a big topic here on YouTube that a lot of people are looking for answers on, is how do we regulate the temperature in our greenhouse? Some people find their greenhouses to be completely unusable during the height of the summer because, well, you can get 30 or 40 degrees Fahrenheit higher temperatures inside your greenhouse than outside your greenhouse. So, for example, today, I could realistically, the forecast is a high of 80 degrees Fahrenheit. I could wind up going as high as 110 degrees Fahrenheit inside my greenhouse without adequate temperature controls. I'm hoping that this shade cloth that I've installed will help even out those temperature spikes a little bit. One way that you can do some emergency temperature control in your greenhouse is if you are getting a really bad temperature spike and the measures that you have installed in your greenhouse are not sufficient to control the temperature and keep things habitable for your plants, you can go around and hose down any gravel or brick surfaces that are in your greenhouse, and it actually takes a lot of heat energy to evaporate water, which is why in dry climates evaporative coolers are so effective. You can get a similar effect in your greenhouse by hosing down your floors. Now, this is not the best way to control your temperature because you're also going to get a massive humidity spike when you do this. This should be occasionally for your comfort or occasionally for saving your plants. If you do find yourself doing this regularly, you should probably look at some alternative ways to control your temperature. Here we've been talking about regulating temperature. I hope you learned something, and I hope you have a fantastic time casually gardening.